this? Well, this was sent to me in lieu of last night's action between Amanda Serrano and Daniela Bermudez, two fighters that are ranked on most women's pound-for-pound lists. The locations of those ranks vary, though all the same. These are two consensus pound-for-pound fighters. And according to World Boxing News, they have so decided to rank Amanda Serrano at number 1, ahead of Clarissa Shields, ahead of Jessica McCaskill, ahead of Katie Taylor.
Wow.
And, I'm assuming that this list was sent to me because,
What do I think?
I want to know what I think about it. Well, if you want to know what I think about it, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, you can't swear by any of these pound-for-pound lists. As soon as they're updated,
The minute they are.
there's going to be something on there that you don't agree with. There's going to be something there you don't like. When I look at this list, I can name any number of issues I have with it. I mean, how's Michaela Mayer the number 6 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, but a long reigning champion in Jessica Tutibap is nowhere on here? Not only has Jessica been a champion longer than Michaela Mayer, she actually beat Daniela Bermudez,
Who's ranked at number 9.
I think everybody on this channel knows how big of a fan I am of Jessica McCaskill and all the work that she's done with Rick Ramos. But that aside, I can't reconcile how the people at World Boxing News have decided to rank Jessica ahead of Katie.
What?
Katie beat Jessica. I don't understand that. Mary McGee makes an appearance on this list, the reigning IBF 140-pound champion. I actually have a very high opinion of Mary McGee. But since resuming her professional boxing career, I can't say it makes the least bit of sense to rank her as the number 7 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport?
What?
Based on what? And that's the question that resonates with me the most when it comes to this pound-for-pound list. What the hell, if anything, are these ranks based on?
There's no discernible logic being applied here.
I don't see what hierarchy of thought, if any, went into making this list, aside from listing some very familiar fighters in the sport of boxing, and that's it. I can't explain it to you. I can't make it make sense how the people at World Boxing News decided that Jessica McCaskill should be ranked ahead of Katie Taylor when Katie Taylor beat Jessica McCaskill. The same applies to, Daniela Bermudez being on this list when she was beaten by Jessica Bob. Jessica's not even on this list. I mean, a lot of this doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's not going to make a lot of sense. So my advice to you, viewer, the boxing fan, is you got to stay away from these kinds of lists, because all they're going to do is raise your blood pressure.
You're going to give yourself a migraine trying to figure this list out.
When it comes to the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, there are some recent updates that are going to take effect in the next couple of days. I haven't made those updates yet, but you can expect to see changes on the list, though why Amanda Serrano in particular would be ranked as the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport for beating a naturally smaller fighter who is moving up in weight, you'll have to ask the people at World Boxing News why they decided to rate them that way. I mean, here on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list on the channel, I told you guys ahead of the fight.
It's intriguing.
It's a great fight between Amanda and Daniela. It's a great fight. It's intriguing. It has all the makings of a good dust-up, a good Donnybrook, and that's what it turned out to be. It did. But how does Amanda, beating a naturally smaller fighter moving up in weight, put her ahead of, say, Jessica McCaskill, who didn't fight a smaller fighter moving up in weight? She was the smaller fighter moving up in weight who beat a naturally bigger fighter. Ideally, that's the criteria for a pound-for-pound list, that a fighter, regardless of size, possesses a certain skill set that triumphs through and through.
That's it.
Because the basic idea is that you take away the size advantage and one fighter's a better fighter than another fighter. I mean, that's how it all boils down. It's about skills, but it's also about showing and proving those skills in the ring. So when I see this, of course I'm going to have the same kind of question you guys have got, but I've grown so accustomed to discrepancies and nonsensical rank standings over the years that it's very difficult for me to get all bent out of shape over
This kind of stuff.
how some periodical decides to rank these fighters. I can tell you, looking at this list, there doesn't appear to be any discernible fact-based criteria associated with it. But how many times have you seen that on a pound-for-pound list? That's tell-them age these days. Look for the next set of updates to the Ring IQ Women's Pound-for-Pound list in the coming days and weeks, and hopefully that will make more sense to you than this. In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, the WBC have now ordered Ryan Garcia versus Javier Fortuna for Garcia's WBC interim lightweight belt and the mandatory position. Winner would be the next challenger for the Devin Haney versus Jorge Linares winner. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because if we do, we're just going to keep revisiting the same old talking points. That the WBC didn't order Garcia versus Haney because according to the WBC, they wanted more time. I haven't heard either Eddie Hearn, Bill Haney, or Devin Haney address that yet. I don't know if they have, I just know I haven't seen it. According to the WBC, both sides wanted more time. Make of that what you will, and here we are. Is the Javier Fortuna fight a good fight for Ryan? The answer is yes. I know it's not Gervonta Davis. I know it's not Devin Haney. I know it's not Teofimo Lopez. I know it's not Vasyl Lomachenko. But this is a good fight, a solid fight between Ryan Garcia and a live animal. A durable guy who can punch, some experience as a lightweight. He's been in there with some people. It's got the makings of a good fight. It does.
But Ryan said he's too big and too strong for Loma.
Yeah, I know. He says a lot of things. He said he was going to fight either Gervonta Davis next or Manny Pacquiao, and none of that materialized. But be honest with each other and be honest with yourselves. Who actually expected either of those fights to take place next? Because I know I didn't.
Did you?
And I guess there's something to be highlighted there that, Ryan Garcia, he goes shooting off at the mouth, saying all this stuff about fights that end up not happening.
He does.
But, he's one of several fighters in this division that's doing this. I mean, we talked about Devin Haney and Vasyl Lomachenko's situation in a previous video and how Devin Haney was asking for Vasyl Lomachenko and how Vasyl Lomachenko is saying that both Devin and Bill are lying and they didn't send him a contract and it's all bullshit. I mean, this isn't just going on with Ryan Garcia, in other words. It's going on with other fighters at this same weight.
So what are we going to do, single him out?
This isn't me trying to cut him slack. This isn't even me trying to give him a pass. This is me saying, okay, Ryan Garcia's shooting off at the mouth, talking about fights that he knows ain't gonna happen. As opposed to who, though?
Who?
As opposed to who at 135 pounds when it's not just going on with Ryan, it is going on with other guys.
You're just going to have to look at the silver lining here, folks.
The silver lining here is that Devin Haney very soon is set to fight Jorge Linares, and Jorge, while not being what he used to be, is still a better guy than anyone Devin has fought in recent memory. And that even though Ryan Garcia promised a lot of people, a lot of things, and none of those things happened, at the end of the day, the Javier Fortuna fight is still a good fight. It's still an interesting fight. It's still worth watching.
That's the silver lining.
So just look on the bright side. You got that to look forward to. In other news, per another tweet from Michael Benson, Alexander Usyk. Recently, Dana White wrote to me if I would like to try myself in the UFC. I replied, send an offer. I am ready. So I have many options for what to do. I'm not going to sit still and wait for Joshua and Fury to fight. I'll find someone to box with. And this story really threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
Because, what's Dana White contacting this guy for? He's a decorated amateur boxer. He's a decorated professional boxer. But what he ain't is a mixed martial artist.
He's not.
And he's not going to become one between now and the time that Anthony Joshua fights Tyson Fury. The window of time for Alexander Usyk to dabble in the world of mixed martial arts, well, let's just say it's going to take more than a year, I'd say. That is, if he plans on having any success. And this news is coming at a time when he's supposed to be in deep negotiations for a Joe Joyce fight to maintain his position as the WBO's interim champion so that he can stay in line to face the winner of Joshua versus Fury. The Joshua versus Fury situation looks to be a 2-fight deal, a 2-fight engagement.
Yeah.
Alexander Usyk, even if he maintains that spot, won't get his shot at the winner for some time. But even in that time, that's not enough to become a mixed martial artist. Clarissa Shields, whose MMA crossover is widely publicized, more so than any of her boxing matches. Didn't she say she's given herself something like 2 years before she's ready to challenge Amanda Nunes? I think it would take an excess of that for her to be ready to fully cross over and have success. And I think something very similar applies to Alexander Usyk, who, to my knowledge, hasn't been training to compete as a mixed martial artist. This isn't the kind of decision you make on a whim.
Especially not when there's more money in boxing anyway.
Don't let the pay-per-view buys fool you. UFC fighters don't get paid the same way that boxers do. Dillian White is one example of how a boxer, who may not even be a world champion, gets paid in excess what a star mixed martial artist might be getting. Usyk stands to make more from a Joe Joyce fight than your average UFC fighter, and he stands to make exponentially more if he sticks around the sport of boxing long enough to challenge the winner of Joshua versus Fury 1 and 2.
Assuming there are 2 fights.
You can always add rematch clauses, even two-way rematch clauses, to a contract, but ultimately it is up to the fighters to exercise them. And depending on how the first fight goes, I don't know, maybe it's a one and done. Maybe the loser of the fight don't exercise their rematch clause. Just putting that out there. The bottom line here is, there's far too much legwork involved with trying to become a UFC fighter when you've been a boxer for most of your life. Moreover, there's more money in being a boxer than there is in being a UFC fighter. So I don't think this gets off the ground.
Yeah, I don't think this story holds any water.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not calling Alexander Usyk a liar. I'm just saying that even if Dana White did reach out to him, I don't expect to see Alexander Usyk enter the cage, enter the octagon. That's about as counterintuitive gets. In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Juan Estrada has been upgraded to WBC franchise champion at Super Flyweight, and the WBC have approved a trilogy fight with Roman Gonzalez to happen next. Choco-Estrada III versus Carlos Cuadras ordered for the standard title, and winners will be ordered to meet afterwards. What do I think about this news? This is another dubious move from the WBC, but I must admit, they're not alone. Eddie Hearn is partially to blame here. He is. For better or worse, you can't say that he didn't. You can't say he didn't have a finger in this pie because he hinted that these kinds of talks, these kinds of conversations have happened as a segue to what could be a third Estrada Chocolatito fight. So the news is bittersweet because I wouldn't mind seeing a trilogy. But I don't know about this, And Carlos Cuadras, he's getting another title shot, yet another title shot.
Yeesh.
He just got a title shot at Juan Francisco Estrada not that long ago, so he's getting another one with Saw? You couldn't find somebody else for him to fight?
Come on.
There's no way any of this went down without Eddie Hearn's involvement because you have to ask for franchise status. You have to petition for it, the way that Bob Arum petitioned for it on Vasyl Lomachenko's behalf. The same applies here. Eddie Hearn promotes both Chocolatito and Juan Francisco Estrada, so there's no way this goes down without Hearn knowing about it, without Hearn asking for it. Just when we thought that we got rid of one franchise champion in the sport of boxing because the franchise designation serves no actual purpose to the sport. Canelo Alvarez decided to fight for the real title, the full version of the WBC title at 168 pounds. And in that way, that franchise designation that he was given, is cast aside, only so that another one of those designations could be designated to the super flyweight division.
It's bittersweet.
Now, I'm left to wonder as to whether or not that franchise designation will be up for grabs when Juan fights Roman for the third time. Is the designation now transferable? Because, by definition, this isn't a unification match.
Not really.
The full version of the title is now in possession of Sor Rungvisai, and whether you want to consider Juan upgraded or you want to say that he forfeited the title to Sor, however you look at it,
Whatever.
it's not a unification match if the WBC version of the title, whatever it is, it ain't a unification if we're talking about the franchise title and the actual WBA title. WBC continues to create confusion in the sport of boxing that in many ways hurts the sport and takes away its luster, takes away its prestige, and lessens what it means to be a champion when they're in such a hurry to give everybody a belt. And we know why they do it, because the more belts they give out, the more sanctioning fees they collect for those belts. That's what it's all about. That's why they don't hesitate to do this kind of crap. Like I said, we can't just blame the WBC for this. There's no way this goes down without Eddie Hearn asking for it. He promotes both of those fighters, and if Juan Francisco Estrada was elevated to
The French fried champion.
Hearn had something to do with it. So as it stands, Sor Rungvisai and Carlos Cuadras are going to be having a second installment of their 2014 fight where it was Carlos that walked away with W. This will be Sor Rungvisai's chance for revenge at yet another Mexican-born fighter, even if it's not Juan Francisco Estrada. Is it dubious that Carlos is getting another world title shot, another world title opportunity?
He hasn't had a fight since last October when Juan beat him.
Yeah, it's dubious, and that makes the news bittersweet because all of these fights, every single one of them, promises to be fireworks. Finally, on Saturday, May 8th, Jesse Vargas, two-time champion, will make his ring return on the undercard of Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders.
Jesse hasn't had a fight since February of last year.
When he lost that decision to Mikey Garcia in the welterweight division, a fight where Jesse Vargas was visibly hurt by Mikey Garcia's punch. One is left to wonder, if you got guys like Mikey hurting you at welterweight, what the hell's waiting for you at junior middleweight?
He says he wants to fight for a title.
But I don't know if that's in the cards for Jesse at 154 pounds, because we know who's got the run of the place at 154 pounds. All of the titles are on the PBC side of things. I mean, that's assuming that Golden Boy Promotions don't have options on Brian Castano. That's a little theory I've been playing with as of late, that maybe in order to get the Patrick Teixeira fight, perhaps Golden Boy incorporated into the contract options on, the winner.
Maybe.
Even if the winner's Brian Castano. And that's just a lucky dog guess. Who knows if that's what's going on. But if that's not what's going on, well, I don't know who it is that Jesse Vargas is going to be fighting for a world title unless he's set to cross over to the PBC side of things. I'm not telling you that I think Jesse can win a title at this weight. I don't think Jesse's, got the frame, the punching power, and the durability for junior middleweight. I really don't. And that's not a knock on him. I think he's a good boxer, but this weight, I just don't think he's cut out for it. And, I don't see him beating a Brian Castano. I don't see him beating a Jermel Charlo. And before it even comes to that, there's actually getting the fight.
Getting the title shot.
His next fight's on his own, and he's not on the right side of the street. Now, that's not saying that there aren't opportunities for Jesse Vargas at 154 pounds. There are. I could see Tim Tszyu being built up into a Jesse Vargas fight. That's right. Tim Tszyu, who's going to be in action very soon against Dennis Hogan.
Probably going to knock Dennis out.
And if he does, I don't think he gets fast-tracked into a world title opportunity. I don't think he goes into a world title fight if he knocks out Dennis Hogan. Jesse Vargas is the kind of experienced fighter that creates the kind of experienced fight that is appropriate for Tim Tszyu, who is still developing as a fighter, showing a lot of promise and a lot of marquee value, if I do say so myself. And I could see a Tim Tszyu Vargas fight coming into fruition.
I wouldn't rule that out.
I wouldn't, because it's hard to imagine that either of those fighters are going to be fighting for world titles in a division where the PBC's got the run of the place, where they've got the run of the world titles. I don't know.